Good morning, evening, or afternoon, friends, families, cats, and dogs. Today, we will be going over our Great War in the Pacific campaign game. This is intended to be a primer for those who have no idea what they're doing or have never heard of this game before, like many of us have. Um, yeah, we're just going to go right and talk about this game. Uh, we're going to go over some basics in the spirit of sharing information with my friend Pyro, who has said that, oh my god, if you have something, you should tell us. And I'm going to be like, okay, let's do it. So, our war game is Gary Grigsby's War in the Pacific. This is a game that is very old, and it sucks, but it is basically the only thing that is capable of doing what we're trying to do, which is simulate the entire Pacific War from 1941 to 1945. We are going from the coast of Africa to Panama. And this is every single convoy ship, every single soldier, and all these countries' economies. In this game, we are going to watch as signals intelligence is collected. We're going to watch as ships are built. We're going to watch as economies are built and are destroyed by bombers and fire bombs, not naming names, and a few other things to include boats shooting at each other. So that's going to be pretty fun. So as an introduction to World War II, I'm sure many of us kind of know what it is, but basically in the Pacific, Japan is like, hey guys, fuck you, and they start bombing everyone. But the question is, what the fuck? What's the background? Why is this actually happening? And this is important. Bear in mind, this is important because we're like, okay, well, I'm on Team Allies or I'm on Team Axis. Well, why are you actually fighting? What is your goal? What is your intent? I don't know what's going on the Axis side, but at least for the Allies, we're gonna like actually dig into this. Our plans have like purpose and meaning. So I want us to kind of be on board with what we're doing here and why. So in essence, Japan is like, okay guys, we have an empire now, and they're like, okay, let's keep this empire. But then the problem is, guys, we don't have metal, we don't have oil. So they're like, oh shit. So they're like, okay, well, we're already kind of invading China. This invasion of China happened in like 1937. So they're like, okay guys, we need to actually get some, I don't know, money. So they're like, all right, what are we gonna do now? This is too far ahead. So they're like, okay, we're just gonna go and invade the south, because the Southeast Asia, they got oil down there. If I had like a nice red marker, I would point at like the Dutch East Indies and like that stuff, because they got like oil down there, and Japan needs oil because they're like, guys, we're just like buying all this oil from the United States, but the United States doesn't want us to invade and take over, so they have to like get together in the big table and say, guys, this is not gonna work. So yeah, they're like, we need to save face, because if we don't have the resources, we can't continue our empire. And they're like, damn. So yeah, they need resources to wage the war, because the war is required to have their empire. And if they don't have an empire, then they're like humiliated, and humiliation is really bad. And yeah, so what we're doing, this is kind of a cutaway. Military studies, this is what we're doing. We're going to be taking the roles of our admirals, generals, analysts, because we're going to be getting signals intelligence. We're going to be getting like spotters intelligence, like all this intelligence from, say, everything. Like, name it, we're going to get it. Human intelligence, person intelligence, I don't fucking know. Like, I see something, and like even out of the game intelligence, who knows? I'm not pointing any fingers, but you know, we have our ways. The Allies are very strong and really cool. Fuck you, Japan. So yeah, we need to pay attention to, I don't know, how we're actually going to fight this. These battles taking place in War in the Pacific are fought at the strategic scale, and the strategic scale, let's go with that. So, like, we gotta actually work this out. I mean, tactical scale too. If you really think about it, these carrier battles are like, we need to organize like the individual fighter pilots and the individual fighter, the bomber crews and stuff. So it's like we need to actually figure this out. These bomber wings have commanders and missions and tasks, and that's pretty tactical level. So we're also looking at the technology, of course, because we're going to see advances in technology from 1941 to 1945, namely radar and other intelligence gathering equipment, but also just tactical level stuff like ships getting upgraded, planes getting upgraded, and it plays a decisive role, especially, for instance, American torpedoes are going to be shitty until like 1943. So technology does play a role. It's not just autism numbers. The political factors and social factors, these are going to be played out by us, the players, because obviously we are going to be doing a total simulation of this war. So it's like, all right, well, there's politics involved. What is their goals? What is their intents? The social factors. Okay, are we really going to be keeping up this fight? Should we give up this territory and risk like a social loss, or do we want to hold it and say, okay, we actually tried to fight? Because we got to remember, at least for the Allies, we're a democracy. We have quote-unquote freedom of speech, so we gotta keep that going. Economic factors, this is obviously going to play a big role. I'm not going to reveal any tricks because I don't want the Japanese to get any bright ideas, but if anyone's having a special military operation in early 1941, we're going to have a bad time, and it's going to be the Japanese having a bad time. Yeah. Oh, and logistics, that's a big one. I totally skipped over that. Yeah, we need to manage every single convoy ship. And we need to load every single one and plot every single one's course manually. This is going to be painful, and as we learn, I'm going to teach you. Pyro, if you're watching this, there is actually a way to automate the convoy system. You can have them repeat missions as they get from point A to point B, and I'll create a separate video on that. Anyways, I've just been talking for about 7 minutes now. Let's continue. Philosophy of language. This is important. I know, crazy. What the fuck does philosophy of language have to do with war? Well, the thing is, language is quite literally the foundation of everything. And when I say everything, I mean absolutely everything. So some important stuff is okay, well, Japan is built off of their shit, and then the West is built off of their shit, and they're like, okay, what does this actually mean? Why is this relevant to me? Boring, snooze fest. Well, I mean, look at this. Historically, and if we're going off historical day one scenario, we got to think of it as, okay, well, Japan doesn't have task forces. They have the fucking butai ties, whatever the fuck this means. They don't have a chain of command. It's fucked up. And then you look at the USA, they're like, okay, well, we have the force structure. I guess it's different. I'm using books for this. I don't actually, I have a picture of it on my phone, of all the books I'm using. I'm going to reference, wow, this is really late to reference these books. The Imperial Japanese Navy by Paul Dole. A Guide to Study and Use of Military History by the Center of Military History. Very, very smart. And The Atlas of World War II by Barry and Francis Pitt. I can't believe I didn't mention that. Anyways, yeah, so these are important. Yeah, cultural differences between the USA and Japan going all the way back here. Yeah, so Japan's like, we want a country, and they're like, oh yeah, well, we've been beat up by the white gaijins the whole time. Well, let's go kick their ass. They need resources to have their empire. They don't have resources though, so they need to fight to have resources to have their empire, so they don't get sad. Yeah, this quote kind of sums it up. The Japanese believed an early and decisive destruction of the U.S. Pacific Fleet would end a war with the United States with an early peace. Wow, I totally copied that wrong. And the Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere would thus become a reality. So they want to have their empire. Brr, kill. so the U.S. was like, oh yeah, well we have a plan for that, but the plan was really shitty. But like, it was still a plan. So it was called Orange or Rainbow Five. So they're like, okay guys, what if we attack Japan? And that was basically it. But it's gonna happen kind of slowly. They're like, okay guys, we kind of suck at fighting, so we need to like give it some time so we can build shit because we got like a lot of metal. But Japan was like, oh my god, we know about this. So yeah, it was kind of a thing. And then Japan was like, guys, let's go bomb the fuck out of these guys, because this is like their whole plan. Like, they wanted to have their decisive battle. They believed that, like, guys, what if we just killed all of them all at once? And they kind of like got together and nodded their heads. So yeah, they went ahead and did that on December 7th. This was like before a declaration of war. It was kind of like planned wrong, because they're like, guys, what if we like wait until the war is declared? So they all nodded their heads, like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's wait for the war to be declared. But the problem was, the planning went bad because they didn't realize that people had to like walk and push papers and like talk to people. So the Japanese like delegation to the U.S. and Washington like took their time. They were kind of late because, you know, they had to go to the bathroom and stuff. And then they bombed Pearl Harbor before they could like leave the bathroom. So it was like a bad move. But not just Pearl Harbor. They actually bombed everywhere. They bombed Thailand, Malaysia, Malaya, whatever. Hong Kong and the Philippines. Bad day for those guys. Yeah, and that's where we're at right now. I'm gonna cut it here because I want to go into the Allied war plans and stuff, and I don't want to do that in the same video as what I'm gonna give to like everyone. So if you're Japanese and hearing this, just be aware that we're gonna kill you like really hard, like really bad. You're gonna get shot multiple times. Like, more than once, more than twice. It's gonna be pretty rough. I hope you're ready for that. If you're not, that's too bad. Alright. Yeah.